I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the October 24, 2018 meeting for the Nottingham Planning Board. I'd like to go around the table here and just have members introduce themselves, starting with Robert Davies.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Edward Veal. Dirk Grotenhuis.
Susan Mooney.
Gary Anderson. Joe Clough.
We have a, within our public meeting, the first item we have up for, on our agenda is a 5-lot subdivision conceptual review or presentation. And this is at 147 Raymond Road, and this is map 63, lot 47.
Mercy Buzz.
Ah, yes.
And there's no votes on this.
Well, we're not voting, but I would prefer to have
sometime
official information from Robert Davies, who will be seated for, who's missing? Teresa Baskin. So this conceptual meeting is a non-binding meeting. This is more an informational. This allows potential applicants to come in to the board and present their ideas prior to making a formal application. So as I mentioned, this is very informal. There's nothing binding, no comments from the board or from the applicant are can be brought forward into the application, but we're really here to discuss what project you might be presenting, and also there's a public here, so it would be good if there's a little bit more information and ideas of what you're planning on doing with your property. So with that, just introduce yourselves. Please provide your name and address.
My name is Brad Vuno. I live at 135 Raymond Road. I'm the trustee for the property located at 147 Raymond Road. And this is my surveyor, Jim Franklin. He's the one that put together all the data that you guys are looking at. And I'm pretty much going to turn it over to him because he knows more about what we need to ask and what discussions need to take place.
Okay, and if you could just, there's any other approval history or anything like that is helpful for this property.
We did get a variance on, I believe it was February, from the zoning board to allow 3 of 6 lots to be located on a private road, Whitesgrove Road. Yeah, that was February 6, 2018. We got that decision from the zoning board. So we ran into, when we actually got into the survey, we ran into identifying the wetland areas, of course, and stuff, and put in the appropriate setbacks. So we lost a lot in doing that. So it's now going to be a 5-lot subdivision. Because we want to maintain the setbacks and the natural, you know, forest area. You know, the idea is to put 4 houses in there that are not going to impact the neighborhood in any way. The people won't be able to see them. There'll be enough acreage around them, and like the drawings shows, we've tried to observe all. We have observed all the setbacks. That's what lost us one of the lots.
My name is Jim Franklin. I'm the land surveyor that's doing the work and preparing the drawings. In regards to the variance that was granted, it's case number 18-001-VA. And that's just for the record, that's
Thank you.
what was allowed. We've done a boundary survey, topographic survey. We had a wetland delineation done by a soil scientist, wetland delineator. And what I have tried to do is interpret the board's regulations to develop a concept. I had some questions generally about the setbacks more specifically. On the drawings, I'm not sure which drawings you have right with you there. The 11 by, you have the 8.5 by 11? Oh, good, that's the colored one. Excellent, excellent.
So, could you start at a little bit higher level? How big is the lot?
It's
The
11
lot that you're
acres.
planning on
11 acres,
subdividing?
give or take.
Actually, it's 14,
14?
14 acres.
Okay,
14
give or take,
acres.
yep.
And you're planning on subdividing that into 5 lots
Yes,
in 4 homes? So there's an existing home there, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
And then, so the lots vary in size from what to what?
2 acres up to 5.7. But that's, again, that's tentative, because some of my questions are very specific about these regarding the setbacks.
Okay.
When I read through the zoning ordinance, I have in the lower right corner of the drawings, I had a summary there. The frontage is 200 feet. I have no problem maintaining the 200 feet for each lot. The building setbacks from all lot lines is 50 feet. And I wanted to make sure that that interpretation was correct. Okay?
Yep.
The wetlands overlay zone, as you can see, I've highlighted those in the colors here. There's 2 primary ones, wetland A and wetland area E, but there is also a B, C, and D that is in the northwesterly corner, the extreme northwesterly corner. There's 3 areas there. It's where the culverts cross Whites Grove Road. But I have maintained setbacks from those wetland areas as well. The wetlands here, I'd like to have our wetland scientists, soil scientists, look at these again, but I believe that these are poorly drained wetland areas, as opposed to very poorly drained. And you can see on the drawings, I've shown a setback of 50 feet and also a setback of 75 feet. One is for the buildings, one is for the septic system, depending upon what is poorly drained or very poorly drained.
Seems appropriate.
Pardon?
Seems appropriate.
Yes, that's the way I thought. I said, I want to be a little cautious rather than cut these down to the wire. The Whites Grove Road, I'd like some feedback from the board, what the board might require for that road. Is the board thinking about requiring it to be upgraded, increased in width, made a public road? Anything of that nature? I mean, it is a private road now, it's on private property, and it's intended that it stay on private property. But if the board has concerns about that, I'd like to maybe iron it out and see how we should proceed at this point.
Are you, is this trust the owner of the
Yes,
private road?
Yes.
Deeded
yes, and Brad is the trustee for it.
And, yeah, along this section here.
Yeah.
section?
Yeah,
But not the entire road.
no.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment or a question?
Sure.
I was of the opinion that recently that subdivisions along private roads should be presented to the Board of Selectmen for their consideration. Was that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. That is a step that you'll have to take, is to go before the Board of Selectmen, because it's a private road. And there is a process that the town has to take by state statute in order to allow that, regardless of whether there's a variance or not, so.
Okay. Would we do that first, or
That would
at the
be-
same time?
That, though, I think we thought that those could run concurrent.
The ZBA, the
Yeah.
planning board process could run concurrent
so-
and then go to the BOS for the building, because they have final say on the building permit.
Pardon?
The board of selectmen will have the final say on the building permits, whether.
Is it class 5, class 6, that type of thing?
Class
No,
5,
just a private
on
road.
private roads.
On all private roads,
Okay.
yeah.
And we can submit to them and to the board at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Or we can go and meet with the Board of Selectmen and then come back and submit?
Yeah, in fact, there's a procedure that is just newly in place. Joanna can probably provide you that flow chart, so to speak, of the milestones that need to be met.
Okay?
So those, that's a fairly new process in the town, but one that, do you have that?
I don't know if that's the final version, but that was one of the drafts. So you've already satisfied part of it by going to the ZBA. It's a, the flow chart is this part here.
Okay. Yeah, right, there's a seven-step process, but the planning board and the ZBA piece of it, and if you've already have the ZBA, those can run concurrently. If you already have the variance, then we'd have to look whether that's already set. It would already be the case where you've had that, you already have the variance approved. But then there's the select board hearing would happen after that case. So after the planning board, then it would go to the select board. So after there's a planning board hearing,
Official application.
official application, public hearing, and this is just to make recommendations for the planning board to go to the select board. So this wouldn't be a full planning board review of the subdivision, as far as I'm understanding it. Do you know that?
Right, it's usually recommendations.
So-
yeah.
Yeah, because the planning board would make recommendations to the select board. The select board would then have the authority to make that ruling. But it wouldn't be an application of the engineering plans, the site plan application. It would be just for access, building permits on private roads. So it's a process. Planning board doesn't have an authority. The select board does, but the select board is having the application come through us so that we can then make recommendations. It's not, we don't have a regulatory process on it.
I asked Chris before you guys were seeing them though, if their plans would have to go to the select board, and they said no, because you guys are taking jurisdiction over the whole thing for new subdivisions. It is only for building permits, not subdivisions. So you might want to check on this with Chris before.
Yeah,
Before they
we'll
come
have to
the
get into a
actual
little
case.
bit of that, because if it does remain a private road, then a building permit needs to be issued to a lot on a private road still.
Correct.
So I think that process,
They already got their variance for that part,
but,
so.
yeah, but it's not it's not a building permit, so those are,
I understand. Is this the first time the board's been through this?
It's changed recently, so before,
Okay.
it would go to the ZBA and the planning board, and now, after review of the RSA involved with private roads, it was determined that the board of selectmen really need to have a voice in the process with building permits.
Makes sense.
Based on the RSA.
Yep.
So that's when, they revised and created the new process for it.
As some of the other towns have basically a hold harmless clause that the landowner
Yeah.
is required to sign and agree so that and it's recorded in the registry. That way if someone comes along and builds a house there and then it burns down, the fire truck can't get there, then you can say, listen, you guys knew that this was the situation.
That is a part of a
Yeah.
waiver of liability.
Yep, waiver of liability, that's,
Required.
yeah, yeah.
So as to upgrading the road or not, so you've already obtained a variance from the ZBA. I mean, normally, the planning board for all new subdivisions would like the roads upgraded to class 5 status. And usually at a minimum on private roads or other types of roads, just ensuring that there's sufficient access for emergency vehicles and a turnaround somewhere so that they can turn around without
Yeah.
having to back down the road, so,
Yeah, we have that in several places.
okay. So that, maybe if those are in this section, to show it and show where they would be.
So right where the overhead wires cross Whites Grove Road,
Yep,
the electric company came in and did their 10-year cut, and they also somebody filled in gravel there up to like about 30 feet. So there's a 25 or 30-foot wide by like 30-foot turnaround, if you want to call it. And then also on the
Northwest corner?
northwest
Yeah.
corner, yeah, there is also a throughway that goes to Highland Avenue. So in case
It's a driveway.
it's a driveway,
And-
but I don't think it's permitted.
We're trying, I've been researching, that's on our list of things to do, is to research that driveway. Is there a granted easement for that driveway from White's Grove into the budding property on the westerly side? I haven't found that, but I don't know that it's not either. So that's something that we have to work out.
So whether or not if we close that driveway off or not, that area right there is 25 feet wide. It's huge. It's by like 30 or 40 feet long.
How large is that abutting property that it connects?
I don't have that with me.
I don't have it.
I didn't,
It's-
yeah.
It's much smaller. The lot sizes are much smaller on Highland Avenue. They're like quarter-acre lots or something.
And they about the lake on the front side.
Yeah, so
Okay.
his is the last driveway on Highlands Avenue, and he does have access to the lake right there.
We will straighten these things all out by the time we come back and make a formal application.
Yep.
I have some, maybe to the board, because I'm not sure, and maybe I need to research this, but the contiguous or the building envelope crossing over the private road, I'm curious if that's something that would have to be considered.
Yeah, I had that noted too, is so that the 30,000 square foot envelope, the building, the lot envelope is supposed to be contiguous, so where a road crosses through it, that, in my mind, would negate the contiguousness of it. So that would go back to your point of whether these are poorly drained or very poorly drained soils, because if it's poorly drained and you have 50 feet, then that moves that back line, you know, that shifts that lot envelope in the middle 5.7 acre lot. That could shift that, you know, 25 feet in, and that may gain you the extra build, you know, contiguous area that you need.
Well, so I was wondering, if it crosses, the setback is 50 feet from the road, because if the road were a boundary line, as with the two lots, you know, the two acre lots, I've shown the center line of the road as the boundary. Our thought was, maybe we should just extend those lots right over, completely across, so that it just eliminates any future concerns. If we take this lot and just extend that across like that, this one extended across like that, make this lot, this is no longer the lot line here, this is no longer the lot line, then this would be one lot, this would, and this one, and this one. That's something we were considering, but where is the setback from? Is the setback, because this is a private road, and the boundary is going to be here, would we also need to maintain the 50-foot setback across here like this, and across here like this, for both of these? And likewise like that.
So, yeah,
You have to maintain this 50-foot setback here.
you're showing that for two of the lots, and then not that third one, I guess. So you're showing the,
You say this line
you're
is-
showing respecting the 50-foot
Yeah, this,
setback on the
Yep.
upper two lots.
this one, and this one.
So those three.
That's what I'm wondering, that's why I've shown alternative here.
Yeah.
I've shown the 50-foot on these two lots, but on this one, I just went across, because that'll bring up a question, the board will question it, and I can remember how to answer, you know, or at least resolve it with the board. Where is that 50 feet? Do we need to maintain this 50 feet from the road on both sides, or not?
I don't think we've done that in the past. Private roads go right across people's property,
Right, I mean,
no setbacks.
No setback.
But those are historical roads
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean-
before they were subdivided.
Yeah, okay.
So, you know, there's a lot of questions we have revolving a private road, going through properties, since this one does connect to other homes. You know, who's gonna take over ownership as it travels through these parcels? Who's gonna have the maintenance of those? Who's gonna provide access? There's a lot of those issues that come up on a private road that we'll have to have answers for, or you'll have to have answers for. In typical subdivisions, we would have it as an upgraded paved road, you know, a class 5 road. That's what new subdivisions are required to do. If we had a 6-lot subdivision into one parcel with a cul-de-sac, it would be required to have a paved road. So,
So can I just go back to what Ed said about, I'm not sure if these lots have numbers.
I didn't,
The
I
one with,
apologize, but,
5.1 acre lot,
yes?
where wetland area E is. If your soil scientist goes in and finds that these are poorly drained soils, not very poorly drained, then that building envelope can be pushed closer.
Yes.
And then you can pull the green from the other side of
Yes.
Grove Road. And you
Yes,
might
no
be
doubt. I
fine.
tried to go to the most extreme restriction. I said, if, how many lots can we get if I use the most extreme restriction? And that's why I showed it this way. Again, the road is a major concern.
Yeah, going back to that, you know, obviously, I guess that would be a board determination and discussion. But I would be treating it, as I look at it, I would be treating the setbacks as, you know, that's the road, so that it'd be the 50 feet from that, as the other lots are shown, as to where your setback would be from. And that the contiguous area has to be contiguous. It can't be subdivided or cut off by a road.
yeah, I mean, the intent of setbacks is to buffer from roadways. And even if it's a private roadway, you know, we would not allow you to put a house 5 feet from the road. So there
Understandable.
needs to be setbacks that pertain to private roads as well, you know, in my mind, in board's mind.
In line with that, if we were to maintain that setback, which we intended to, is that area also to be excluded from the building envelope? That was one concern. If we use the 50-foot setback from the roadway, then for that 5.7 acre lot, you can see it's going to be reduced significantly. We take that green area, that 30,000 square foot envelope, this would all go away. This would no longer be part of that.
Right.
And so then I doubt that this would be then a viable lot. So that was, again, that's another question. We can maintain the setback, we could maintain the setback, but the building envelope, can we still extend that across the road? I don't know, it's a pretty gray area.
I mean, the original property was on both sides of the road. Doesn't have anything to do with it. I mean, we own the road.
Well, you're subdividing it into 5 more, so
Right,
it's,
pretty much everything in it back goes away.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question on so there's a remaining parcel along the frontage.
Yes,
Is that part of the parent parcel here, or is
yes.
it
Yes, that's the original homestead.
the one with the house or buildings there?
I think
Yeah,
I'm talking about the one that would be to the north.
That's a camp,
Oh, that's
and that's been sold off. I understand. Yes.
yeah, yes.
Okay.
The next,
This one right here?
yeah. What's that property?
the area of the map that's marked.
That one was sold, what, 1950? The date escapes me, but that is not part of this subdivision. It
Okay.
did come out of the White's Grove parcel, it did come out, but it came out, prior to the I'm gonna say 1989 subdivision. It was 88.
And what's the boundary of that?
That's,
The center line of the private road?
according to the deed, yes. According to the subdivision plan that mapped that line erroneously, they used a straight line. You can see that
That's the-
cross-hatched area on there?
That's the
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
line?
Yep,
That's where our sewer.
that's the gore. Excuse me. That line, the line, there's a dashed black line that is closely parallel to the house and the barn. And it's that's the limits of the gore. That line is a deed line And likewise, the center line of the road is a deed line. So we have a gore in there that we need to resolve. The attorneys need to resolve that from the estate to whomever.
Okay, in either one of those cases, or in both those cases, half or potentially all of that parcel of road will not be in the property that you're subdividing.
Correct.
Okay, understand.
If, yeah, as it stands on this drawing, we have the 2 acres around the existing farmhouse. But we have that overlap of the deeds, which we need to resolve.
Well, it's actually like one deed goes up to a certain point, and there's a hole between the 2 deeds. So,
My intention is that we use the center line of the road as the boundary between the parcels, as it exists for all practical purposes.
yeah, because that's where my septic system is, right there.
Ah,
Yep.
Yeah.
You can see, we still have some things to iron out.
Yeah.
Right, no, and that's what this meeting is, what this is for.
Derek,
Yes.
can we refer him to the zoning ordinance that actually specifies that the buildable area has to be contiguous? Can we give him that information?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it would be Article 2,
Yep.
C, 1C. And it says very specifically that the 30,000 square foot area has to be contiguous,
Yeah.
which means it cannot be divided by a road.
Correct, and it has to be at least 50 feet wide. The contiguous area has to be at least 50 feet
Yep.
wide.
Yep.
Yes. But again, I understand, but this being a private road, I needed to raise the question with the board as to how the directions, how should I proceed with this? It would make sense to me that the contiguous area cannot go across the road because that's interrupting your private right of access and use. So again, that would make sense.
Are there some other questions or observations from the board?
I'd like to ask Mr. Franklin a question from my conservation end.
Yeah.
Just,
Sure.
thank you. They let me sit on the board once in a while. You had mentioned that on public service or whoever the utility is, they came through and they cleared the area underneath the overhead wires that come through the property?
Yes,
That's correct? And did they go right through the wetlands as well?
yes, he did.
And,
It's not like they disturbed, it's not like a mowed clearing. They cut the vegetation, but when we were out there doing the survey, it's already starting to come back up.
is it that they just go in with handheld, or they go in with machines?
I don't know.
And you said they dumped a pile of gravel somewhere. Where was
Where was
that?
that, Fred? You said that
Oh,
they,
right where the overhead wires cross
Private
White's
road?
Grove?
Whites Grove
Yeah.
Road.
Okay,
There's a turnaround there, if you want to
Okay.
call it, there's a pull-off or whatever.
but it's
quite-
not in the wetland, the gravel?
No, it's quite sizable, actually.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it'd be easy, we've been down there with our fire trucks and stuff like that, and it supports the weight of the fire trucks.
I
So
see.
we were able to pull off and pass each other safely.
Okay, thank you.
And any cisterns or anything like that in this area, if they are, we'd want to show those. Normally, speaking of fire and things, that's usually one of the requirements, is that there's.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
Oh, I
that.
apologize, I'm looking down.
Okay.
Speaking of fire trucks and things like that, so normally, considering fire access and then, so with major subdivisions, usually water access is a concern, so making sure, sometimes they require cisterns, or other times, compromise is made that the houses have sprinklers instead.
Yeah,
That's usually an acceptable compromise,
yep.
so that's another area. But yeah, we'd obviously have to see that gore area, that would probably have to be cleared up or addressed, because right now, if
So
the
what-
approved subdivision that's on file with the deeds is showing the line going through there, that's.
But it wasn't a line that was created by the subdivision. It was a surveyor's interpretation, and I believe it was wrong. But I would I can bring that information back to the board when we get to that point, because I know it is a concern. We're going to talk with an attorney and get his opinion, get something in writing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is that what you would like, is an opinion from a lawyer in writing?
We
Yeah.
we need to do that, yeah.
Because it'll come up to the point for us where we have to, if there's an approved plan that's recorded at the deeds and that's showing a different line, then
Yeah, we'll have to do a corrected
We'll have
deed
to-
or something, yeah.
And I'm sure when we have a notice to abutters, the abutter would come forward, he would make his concerns known, so we need to resolve that ahead of time. If we were to put in a cul-de-sac turnaround, hammerhead, does the board have a preference?
We have allowances to do those in our subdivision regulations, so yeah, that would be allowable. And quite frankly, probably preferable, that could be done within this subdivision.
And is doing that, is constructing that allowable within that 50 feet or 75 feet of the wetlands setback? I'm wondering, can we, if we can stay out of the wetlands, can we put in a typical town cul-de-sac without disturbing the wetlands? Can we be within the wetland setbacks?
I would say no, because you're gonna be disturbing that area and probably filling and grading, and it's gonna be for vehicle traffic, which is not the intent of a buffer.
So there's the wetland setback, and then there's also there's the wetlands itself that cannot be disturbed, and then there's the 50-foot buffer that cannot be disturbed. Is that correct?
Right. With new,
Construction. or-
construction, yeah.
Okay.
With improvements.
There's basically no disturbance within the buffer.
Well, there's limited
You
clearing.
can put
there's
grass
other
in
things,
and
but
gardens
yeah.
and probably, yeah.
I have noticed some interest from public that's here to maybe ask some questions or at least be heard. This is not a public hearing. If there are some questions that might be thought out now versus later, but I do want to recognize that there is public here. It's not a public hearing. This is, nothing is binding, so even if there's answers provided to you, again, it's not binding. This is really an informational. This is an opportunity for an applicant to come before the board and kind of guide prior to a formal application being made. Because once a formal application is made, that means they have a lot of information, a lot of investment into it. So we want to make sure that that's going in the right direction, to make things as smooth as possible and informative as possible to the board and to the public. So I would recognize if there is some public that has questions or some concerns, you are more than welcome to voice those concerns. And if I'd ask one of the gentlemen maybe just to step aside and allow someone from the public to come up.
I don't need a microphone.
That's fine.
My name's Steve White, I'm a friendly abutter, and I'm also Brad's cousin. And we're seeking the legal remedy to this score. The one question I had is that subdivision was approved by the town planning board, and it goes right through a septic system, and it dissects our private road. How did that get approved in the first place?
Well, it wasn't this board, but it was a years
But it
past
wasn't a
board.
board representing the town.
Yeah,
And
we-
I'm a real estate broker, I can't imagine how any thinking body approved that subdivision, and I'm not blaming you guys, but
Well-
we're gonna have to pay to take care of this. And I just can't believe that a planning board approved that. And we just keep looking at it, shaking our head, saying, how did the planning board approve that in the first place?
So it was
I could
a,
offer, I think that the board relied on the judgment of the surveyor at that time. He was a well-known person, he was an instructor, professor UNH, and it's understandable. The board just said, okay,
As a broker with 24 years' experience in the state, I would say that the negligence that surveyor displayed by even putting that in front of the board was verging on criminal. And
all right,
again, can't
I need
believe
to, I need to stop you now before it goes any further. We're not gonna have any accusations like that here. We haven't even gone through the previous application, or the previous approval to know any of this. So
understand. I'm
don't
just-
come into the board here and make statements like that.
Okay.
That won't be tolerated.
I'm just a taxpayer taking care of a problem created by somebody else.
Anybody else in the public who wants to make any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I just, you know, if you guys have any other statements or information that we can
Can
use.
we come back for another informational before we submit?
Yes, you're allowed to come back one more time.
Okay.
Yep, over a 60-day period.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have
Yeah.
everything that you need to figure
Yeah,
out what
yeah.
we need to do?
Yep.
Okay. Just one last thing, I do have the report from the soil scientist. And on it, I know there was some concern about vernal pools. And it says in his survey that this property was also examined for the presence of any vernal pools. None were found to be present on the site.
Who is that, your scientist?
This is John P. Hayes, and he's in Northampton. He was the one who did the wetlands. I can give a copy of this to Joanne if you like, or...
Yes, please.
We'll submit it, yeah.
Oh, we'll submit
Yeah,
it
Yeah.
we will submit all that, yeah.
all together?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yep,
is.
right now, we're just, we're actually not really reviewing engineering plans.
I understand.
This is really a high-level look at what you have, so we can
Yeah.
help guide you, and then we can be informed when you come on back the next
I
time.
appreciate that,
Okay.
yeah.
We're gonna try to move forward quickly on this, so
Okay, so,
you have my contact information. If I can be of service, please.
when would you, I guess schedule-wise, would you expect to be back in, 2
I
weeks or 2
think Brad
months,
wants us
or-
back next week, but I would suspect more like
We're not gonna be
December.
here.
Well, I know you guys have 2 meetings in November.
One.
one,
Is it at the end of the month?
beginning of the month?
So we won't make that one.
Yeah, and there's always a week lead time, at least a week lead time of
Right.
deliverables before the meeting too.
Right, right. So, do you meet in December? or-
Yeah.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah,
Okay,
once
so-
anyway.
Yeah,
So we'll shoot for that.
okay.
Yeah, December 12th is the December meeting with a application deadline of November 12th.
Yeah, it'd be for an informational, I think.
Yeah, if it's
because we have
informational,
too many
we-
too
Oh,
many
yeah, sorry,
issues.
conceptual again, yeah.
Conceptual, we don't need anything prior to the meeting, we don't need the information prior to the meeting. It's great if we have it, but if you want to show up at the meeting with it, then that's fine too.
Okay.
Okay?
Any of these plans the board want, full size, I'll take them down and take them back with me, or you can have them.
I have copies also.
We have copies in a PDF, so I think we're all set.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
So we're gonna move on to the next item in our agenda, which is, the zoning update RFP. What's that?
Just give everybody a minute so that.
Yeah, I'll
so
give you
that
guys,
messes with the mics. All right. So at the last meeting, Dirk, we discussed this a little bit. We didn't get into depth on it. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to kind of go through it now and critique it at all, or if we're ready to push it out. Obviously, we would have to come up with a budget for it and make sure it's in line with our overall budget for 2019.
I did have more of an administrative question. I think there was an example at the last meeting from another town, and I don't recall if we got a copy of that. But this looks very similar to the previous versions that we've looked at, and I think there were some good things in that other RFP example. I think there's one comment around the limited liability and some other insurance,
correct.
things like that.
Yep. So that's what he's talking about. It was, I can't remember what town it was that
It's
we
like Londonderry or
saw,
something like that.
but they have, there's also some language in there where they have to provide within their scope of, qualifications, they also have to provide basically indemnity to the town, so, you know, proof of liability insurance.
Yep.
And workers' comp, a couple of other things, so we definitely wanna add that language in at minimum,
Okay.
which I think we would have to get maybe from Chris as to what the town wants and requires.
I can provide some draft language if they want to put in, fill in some dollar amounts
Okay.
or insurance, because if you're requesting insurance, then you need to provide an amount.
Yeah, it's usually like 1 million, 2 million, 2 or 4.
Yeah, but if for a study, since, you know, there's really little liability issues with it, it can be quite a bit less than that. Do we identify how many meetings they have to attend? Or how many meetings we feel?
We did not, I think that was part of what we put in there, is that, in their letter of intent, they should explain.
Okay, are we asking them for a fee proposal? Or are we just providing them a budget, this is what we have? Do you know what the plan is for that?
I believe we gave the overall budget.
Which is fine, it's just if we're
Yeah,
asking.
ideally we would have,
If
yes.
we're asking them for a fee, then we need to be specific at how many meetings that they would need to go to. It's
Yeah, but
all-
wouldn't it
it's all
work the other way
time-based.
around, Dirk? Wouldn't it be, once they see what we're looking for, that they come back to us and tell us how many meetings they think it's gonna take?
Is that how we're writing this? Then, if we're requesting for a proposal on how they do it,
Let me say it a different way.
Yeah.
In the past, with Medi, that's the way it worked. We would tell him what we were looking for. He'd come back to us and say, well, this is gonna take X number of meetings. I probably only have to come to every third meeting, or I have to be there at every meeting. He'll tell you which way it needs to be done, to get it done in a certain timetable.
And that may include some options, you know, we can do it this way or we can do it this way.
Right.
And this way will take more time and more money, or,
I think I'm with you, Buzz, in that we should probably just provide a budget,
A budget and
and then what
the scope of what we want done.
right, and let their proposal dictate how they intend to use that money or time.
I'm not even sure we ought to put the budget up front. I think that we ought, because if you tell somebody that we've got $1,000 to spend, they're gonna find a way to spend the $1,000. Whereas if you tell them, this is what we're looking for, how long is it gonna take and what's it gonna cost us? And then we decide whether it fits our budget.
Yeah, I see it going both ways, I was thinking that too. So I think if we don't put a budget, I think we have to be extremely clear what we're expecting. You know, we're expecting 3 meetings, you know, on site, plus, you know, this, and this. But
it's
by
good-
putting the
but
budget.
It's gonna be different, Ed, with different parts of this.
Right.
Some things are gonna be real simple, and a planner's gonna say, well, we can accomplish this in 1 meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are gonna be much more complicated, and we may not know how complicated it's gonna be for them. A planner would be used to, would have some experience doing this for other people in similar ordinances. And they should be able to give us an expectation of how much of their time is gonna be involved.
Right. I guess the other option about if we do put a budget on there and we get, you know, 4 proposals, it'll allow us to, so I think as people weigh, firms or whatever, weigh their intent on whether or not they wanna take something on or not, they may look at, you know, okay, well, this one's budgeted out at, you know, $5,000, this town has something out at 10. You know, they may send out different things, but, if we have a budget and we get 3 or 4 proposals, we can then analyze it based on, you know, you're right, you know, are they adding things in because well, they say they have $5,000 to spend, so we're gonna, you know, do this and this. but that also helps us weigh is, well, this one's giving us this for $5,000, but this one's only giving us, this for $5,000, so, I can see it going both ways.
Well, yeah, and then, what if we get 4 proposals back that are all $150,000?
Yeah, we say, no, thank you.
So, that, I mean, that's kind of defeating the purpose of why we wanna do this. We don't need that in depth.
Is there, question to Joanna, is there some level of accountability within town administration to help review the quality of those RFPs for us and provide some administrative oversight? Because I'm sure we've done that in other places within the town budget in the past where we've had to request, just to make sure we're doing it the right way.
You mean the RFP processors?
Well, the
itself, or
process
the-
and reviewing and potentially negotiating on the proposals that come back to us,
Yeah, so we would have, obviously,
excluding the $150,000 ones. I think we can figure that out on our own.
so normally, our chair would probably be first contact, and then we could pull in others, so we could pull in the ZBA chair.
Sure.
And then town administrator.
Yeah, we would probably, what we'd do is probably set up a selection committee,
Sure,
and then we can kind of vet through those.
that's fair.
So I asked Joanna a while ago for how much we spent for master plan with the last update. And she gave me a little spreadsheet from 2009 through 2012, and what the scope of the work was done, or what was attended to. And I think during that time, our planner that we hired upgraded our zoning ordinance to make the other documents mesh together. That was the last one that we did. And during that period of time, this is what we budgeted, and then this was what was spent, and this is what was worked on. So this year, it didn't look as though there was any master plan, but we spent this much for planning services. So that might have been when the zoning ordinance was upgraded.
Okay, so this was the budget item of what we had in there for the planner.
For the years.
Yeah.
For the years. And then workforce housing ordinance, that cost that much. Master plan, that was probably the format work, and then gathering the data because it was a decade year for getting census stuff. And then the real work for the master plan, we budgeted this and we spent that. There might be a year in 2013 that we don't have any line for, but
Yeah.
it just is a guideline. So we were able to do master plan and zoning update and whatever, and workforce housing during the span of those 4 years.
So,
We have to also consider that that was what year? '09, did you say?
09 through 2012.
Oh, yeah, well, the
Right,
costs have
so-
gone up.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Of
the
course.
total cost that we've spent in 09 through, so for 4 years, is roughly
30?
25,000. Over 4 years.
Okay.
Which, the major years that we did services for, were about 10,000 in a year. So the last master planning, if I can extrapolate some of that, was probably around $20,000 worth of value
Yeah, but the whole
for,
package.
for that time frame. So that just kind of gives us a guidance of what we would, we may not use that much because this is more reformatting, but I think that's what we would want to plug in budget-wise.
Well, I think it's reformatting, but I think there's some of those priority topics that we wanted to have addressed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a good chunk of work to be done.
Yeah,
So, we may want to, maybe we're not talking about our budget yet, but
Well, we're kind of,
we're getting
we're
going.
getting there.
that's the next thing on the agenda, but.
So I guess there's two things. So in our 18 budget, we had $15,000 for our planner, and then we still also have 2,500 in Regional Planning Association, which I don't know if that's restricted to membership or if it can be used for planning association, so.
So we didn't use any,
And we could potentially, we could potentially kick the RFP out to them to help them design it, which I don't know if that's not cheating, but if that's allowed, considering they may be one of the people that bid on the project overall.
You lost me, I'm sorry.
I'm saying like, so this RFP, you know, so we're saying like, so we have this.
Yep.
You know, and we have some questions as to, you know, how detailed do we make it? Do we add more detail? Do we add a budget? You know, so do we add timetables and do we make this much more in-depth on the scope so that it's extremely clear? And if we want to do that, do we handle that in-house or do we send that out to someone that's used to seeing these and creating them and have them help us draft the RFP itself?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And then
Have an outside source draft the RFP.
based on what we're looking for out of it, so obviously we're looking for quite a bit. You know, overall, we're trying to get kind of a remaster of the zoning ordinance to make it jive better, and also, there's a lot of stuff in there that seems like it's in weird sections. And then also, you know, create a map for the future for us on how, as we make changes to it, how do you best implement those so that they fit, they plug and play?
So what you're saying is the RFP, the details in the RFP are really what's gonna be important
It
as far
could
as
be,
what
yeah.
we get.
Yeah, 'cause obviously, the more detail you make something, the clearer you make it as to what you're looking for, hopefully the better responses you're gonna get, you know, timetables, scope, you know, cost, and you can have them itemized cost, so it's section by section, you know, so.
I think if we knew exactly what we wanted, we could do that, but there's probably things that we don't know that's their expertise that, you know, we might be missing completely.
Yep.
And if we have them provide us a program in the response, then I think that would help out us to select somebody.
And we can also, either if we decide on a budget to put on here or not, we can also put this out there with the deliverable date. And even if you get proposals back, we don't have to accept any of them. So if we see them and it's like, okay, it answers a lot of these questions we're talking about right now, like, oh, okay, wow, you know, this one gave us only this bit, this one's saying this, you know, we do need to make it more clear, you know, and maybe the responses give us direction too.
Do, for this to go out, does it require a board vote to approve the RFP?
I probably would just ask for a vote,
Yeah,
just so.
for the record.
Yeah, just for the record.
My only concern is that we have, what, two meetings between now and the end of the year, and what, I've asked this a few times, what's the date that we have to submit anything for town meeting? January something, 12th, 9th?
I don't have them
Have you,
memorized.
anything about, are we gonna see changes from this? I think the thought was on this,
February
is that this would be,
February 4th.
this would be going into 2019 for planning purposes. It's not gonna, we don't
Yeah.
expect anything to come of this that we're gonna use for warrant articles for the.
But there were things that we had on our priority list then that we thought we could handle in-house and make adjustments. Okay, I just wanna make sure we're not gonna slow down.
No, I think, you know, there was actually the draft meeting minutes kind of went through a couple of the zoning
Right.
issues. And, I mean, I wasn't at that meeting, but I think we are planning on covering a couple of those things.
Yeah, there's some that we felt like we could handle. I just wanna make sure that that was gonna continue to happen and these were separate issues.
That's the intent to keep on having, as far as I understand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you wish to add some deadlines for these RFPs to be submitted? Proposals due on the cover page and also on page 3.
So typically, we should give 30 days from when we send this out to when we expect responses back. That's pretty standard.
Okay.
But it shouldn't be outlined in the,
I think it should be outlined,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah, have it, we just.
We don't want it out there for 6 months and someone comes back, but we also don't wanna ask somebody to get it back to us in a week.
right,
That's
realistic, yeah.
That's not realistic. So, you know, it's whatever date we're gonna push this out, plus 30 days is when we want responses back. And if we could do that Right now, 30 days will push us into like Christmas.
Well, I'm thinking of the holidays,
Yeah.
you know, and people might take a week off around Thanksgiving and, let me just check my calendar.
Well, if we had this out November 5th, 30 days would be December 5th, that would have us a week before
Oh, yeah,
our
December,
December meeting.
October.
So,
We're close.
Yeah,
but that obviously
It
has
goes
the
fast.
Thanksgiving holiday in there, but, that would be a 30-day window. Or we could push it into,
Yeah, if we could get it out the first part, you know, within 2 weeks,
Right, beginning of
then we can
November.
get it back in mid-December before the big holidays. I think that's.
how many
that's
meetings are we
doable.
having in December?
we have
Yes, one.
one scheduled.
We have one.
Would we expect that, I would actually expect that they would, during their RFP, review our current ordinances to see what they're getting themselves into?
Yeah, they should.
Would it be advisable then if we were to take that priority list, the things that we're thinking about taking on ourselves, so that they can take more of a cursory look or not an in-depth look at some of the things that that way they're not wasting their time on some of the sections that we're fine with.
We could put it in as, you know, I think we'd go the other way, put in the list of things that we would want them to be looking at.
Okay. Focus them on that, okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
You know, as examples, these are the items we would like to.
That's fine.
Move forward on.
So we're meeting December 12th. Would you like them in by the 5th? Which is the week before, Wednesday the 5th.
Sure. Yes, I mean, can we get this out by the
You have to ask,
November 5th?
you have to ask the boss.
When can we get it out?
That's the question.
How does an RFP go out? This is new territory for me.
Just, public notice, and usually gets put into either newspaper.
All right, and there's some blanks that need to be filled in on this. Are those gonna be done by someone else and send me a final draft, or?
Yeah, I think that's what we should do, is we should let's get a time for a final draft,
My first page.
to get this back in, and I think that you've forwarded me this document, right? It hasn't changed since then? Okay, so if you want, I can take that over and look at some of these things. So we're gonna target sending it out on November 5th, getting it back by December 5th.
Do you think that's enough? Since we haven't done it, and you're more probably used to RFPs, but do you think that's?
Yeah,
plenty of time?
this one's not complicated.
So public notice, so it goes in the paper?
Yeah.
Like all other notices, and
Yep.
then on the web and the TV? Is that how we're doing it?
Yeah, and then-
I don't know about the TV, but.
Okay, the web, our website? Are
Yeah.
there other sites that it should go on?
Usually, I've seen them on like NHMA or OSI, like.
Yeah,
they
we
have a-
can put them on organization, we can,
Or they usually pick them up, I don't know how it works, but.
yeah. You know, Stratford Regional Planning Commission will probably have their own list of consultants, we can direct send them.
Oh, that's a good
to
idea.
Sure, they probably
consultants.
have publications.
You know, that's probably an easier thing to do, and we can find out those contacts through the Regional Planning Commission.
Yep.
And anyone else who is interested, we'll find out via, you know, the, newspaper.
Now, we're saying the 5th because we want 1 week prior to the following meeting, but there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to accept others that come in up to the date of the meeting, correct? Or is there a public review required?
No, there isn't a public review required, but we should not accept any applications or proposals after the due date. If we set a due date, then that's when they're due.
Sorry, I had a conversation in my head and I didn't say it out loud. If we don't send it out by the 5th, let's say we send it out by the 7th, are we good if we say 30 days from then, so December 7th?
Yeah.
So we
Okay,
set-
sorry.
I think if we
Oh,
have,
yes,
I think
yeah.
the goal is to be able to maybe look at it before our meeting on the 12th.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure we weren't putting that there was some rationale for the 1 week prior to the meeting. Okay. My apologies. It's not the first time I've had a conversation with myself.
So do you- Since this is planning on going out before, so the last piece before we take a vote on it would be whether we put a budget on it or not? Is that, do you agree, or, because you want a vote on it tonight before we, because obviously we don't have another meeting before that mailing date, or the posting date of this,
Right.
so,
Well, even if it's just a vote that we submit a proposal out to do this.
okay.
I mean, some of the particulars are gonna change and get revised,
Yep.
so I don't, I think that's all the vote we really want. It, to reflect is that we're sending out a request to proposal. I don't even know if we need to, because it's part of our budget, but I think that would be about the only thing.
And Mr.
So were you going to put in a sum of money?
I don't know, what,
Budget? I would say no.
okay, they could easily find it out, well, maybe not easily, by the time we get it back. You know, we do have $15,000, all of our budgets are public records. So you can find out what a planning board's budget is, and if they have $15,000 for master plan updates, then you know that they have a $15,000. That's the way we kind of look at things. And if they don't, then, don't make it $150,000. I'm fine if we don't put a budget in there, we just see what we get back for proposals.
Yeah, it's 30 days, so I'm fine with either, so.
And the other thing we can
revise it.
request is that we request just, billing rates for the people. That way we understand, that for a meeting, if it's $100 an hour, then we know that he or she will be here for 2 hours or whatever. We know how much that will be.
It's a good idea.
So we can look at their billing rates.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we send out the RFP for the comprehensive zoning ordinance review with deliverables by our next meeting, if not before.
Second.
Oh, give it to Joe.
Motion and a second by Joe. Any other discussion? Those in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, none, so that's unanimous. So I will circulate this back around. Yes, sorry, Joanna.
That's okay, just FYI, or actually, I guess confirmation, you're planning on getting me the RFP before the 5th or by the 5th? The reason why I ask is because I'm not in the office hardly at all that day because of the election setup.
Okay.
And there's probably a lead time getting it into the paper
That's
anyway,
right.
of a day or two, I would imagine.
That's true too.
So.
So this gives you, and I won't be back in the office until Monday.
Well, let's just go all around your schedule.
Yes, well, if you're wanting me to
That's
get it out,
important.
yeah.
Then let me ask you, when would you like me to get it to you?
Can you get it to me no later than the 31st?
Halloween?
Yeah.
Scary.
Have the witch fly it to me on the broom.
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Much appreciated.
So we got that. Let's talk about budget. How far in depth did you guys go in the last meeting?
So we kind of went over where we were and what we've spent. And I think there was a couple of items where we were both.
We didn't spend
Was it our select board rep that recommended that that on the budget items that we didn't spend money on this year, that we put in why we want to keep it the same? I think that's what he said was the most important thing.
Why we wanted to keep it the same? Oh, the
Because
narrative,
we
you
didn't
mean?
spend it.
The narrative, yeah,
It's the standard government, if you don't spend it, then you get it taken away.
exactly.
Right.
Instead of
So
saving money,
if we're really talking about using a planner next year, then we want to tell them that in our narrative.
Right.
well, yes, we do want it.
And that's obviously the biggest line of contention.
Yes. So,
So based on that, like line 94, looking at those 4 years of planning, which were several years ago, the average was $7,000 a year spent on actual items versus reviews, it seemed. So based on, if we come in somewhere between 7 and 10 for this, the RFP, if it ends up in that range, that would leave us with about 5 for actual planning review of, you know, major plans that come in.
Well, but those planning reviews are done by outside consultants if we have, you know, a major subdivision. And, I mean, currently, we don't have a planner reviewing plans like we did with Paul.
Right.
And that is one thing that administration has asked me to bring up to the board is, what do we feel like we need for coverage for, say, a planner? What would we like? You know, that's really the same question. What do we feel we need? Do we need a part-time planner? Do we need a full-time planner? How do you guys feel? You know, most of you have been on the board when Paul was here, and now Paul's not here. There has, you know, there's some of that information that's typically at these meetings isn't. Would we benefit by having a part-time planner? I guess
I think part-time, not full-time.
Right.
No, I don't see a reason for full-time.
Using a part-time, you're talking about a planner to review plans that are coming to us.
Well, I'll give you the example of even a conceptual review. So somebody comes in, I mean, that could be avoided if we had a planner just step through, this is our 50-foot setback, this is the reason why you have to do that, you know, to help guide applicants prior to coming to, you know, a meeting. That's, I think, what we're lacking right now is someone in the office that's able to just do that and help Joanna convey what those are.
Which is, the next question is, what does Joanna think we need?
I think a part-time planner would be helpful right now. I think also it would be beneficial to have 1 or 2 board members color one plan to have before the board at the meeting so that it shows clearly the setbacks, the wetlands, the driveways, the proposed road if that's needed. That's one of the things I learned at the law lecture I went to, and I've learned it several times, but it's not ever done. We got blessed tonight with this one, at least outlining very clearly what the building envelopes would look like. But I think when I had Paul in the office, that was one of the big things he did, is he colored the plans, especially if it was a big deal, big proposal. I don't have time for that. I've got four things, or 4 new applications right now, and I'm still behind on your minutes. So it is definitely something necessary right now.
The other benefit of a part-time planner, if they're a consistent person, is that as opposed to like sending out things for review where you get different people in an office that look at it, you get someone that becomes versed in our ordinances, and then, you know, it just makes the process a lot quicker, and it can help the applicants as well, because you get, instead of having to wait to come here to ask a question, you know, and then go back and change things and wait a month to come back, or then go to the ZBA, they may be able to kind of, you know, do some processes ahead of time. And so I think it's, in a way, it's a public service to the applicants as well.
Yeah, I've already met with a couple of applicants that, you know, they're very, okay, can we do this? Very high level, you know, just feeling out if there's kind of the market for it or the sentiment for it in the community, and it's not necessarily, it's an applicant yet. They don't have anything on plans, but they just want to go through, you know, the zoning, the master planning, the understanding of where the town's coming from, and I think that a planner would be able to help that dialogue to those potential applicants. They don't even.
Well, and with these guys tonight, instead of having to have 2 conceptuals, if they met with a planner to start with, a lot of the things that we gave them for answers tonight would already be taken care of, and then they could come back with a real conceptual, just to make sure they're going in the right direction before they put their application
Yeah, and then the other benefit of it too is, if we do have slow times, a planner, part-time planner that's here would then be able to have time to go through things and help us, create timelines and timetables and things for, okay, here's a concern, and much like our building inspector did, come to the table with like, okay, well, coming from a different town to here, I see these things are kind of a little bit, wonky, so maybe consider doing this. A planner could help us get that into a schedule and then keep it to a schedule and move it forward, in like a controlled manner.
Okay.
And I think that's the reason the 18 budget was, one of the reasons the 18 budget was increased on that line.
Yeah, that was the intent, and, we went through we thought we were gonna be able to do it with the building inspector part-time and planning part-time, find the right person to do that, and that just hasn't come through. And that is exactly the reason why it was at 15, which is probably
And then you could also say, we tried it for a year without, and it really isn't working well, taking
Right.
its toll on all of us, really.
We have
Picking
the
up the slack.
upfront on the office, staff, and then, luckily Dirk's been able to get in and review most of the especially the major things, and we've kind of lucked out in a way too, not lucked out, but that most of our subdivisions have been 3, 4, 5 lots. This year, we haven't had a, 50 or 40 lot subdivision come through,
But you got a 21 coming in.
so, something like that.
Well, and what would help, I think, the board is really the confidence we would have in being able to address the applicant, because we're actually trying to vet through some of those interpretations right here in reaction to what they're doing, and that's a lot of, I'd rather come across with, this is the regulation, and then let us determine, how it should be applied.
Make the determination, not
Yeah.
get to that point first.
I mean, because it's hard, because we all feel, we're interpreting it a little bit differently in our own regulations, which is good. I mean, that's why we have more than one person on the board. But it would be nice to have that kind of foundation of, this is what's in your regulation, and, you can decide what you want to do with it. So we'll keep that in there, and I think at a 15,000 level, and we'll put the narrative in there that we want,
Part-time planner.
part-time planner.
So on that one, could we check with, I don't know if Chris has like an idea of a dollar amount there that, as to what a part-time planner may cost, is that 8 hours a week, or, 8 hours every other week? That would,
Do we want them at all of our meetings?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I
I would
think it
think
would be
so.
helpful.
The more intimate he is with what we're doing, the better it's gonna be for us.
And, since we meet twice a month, so there's, 2 meetings a month, plus probably, a couple days, so, for each application. So it's probably more than 1 day a week. I'm just thinking out loud there.
yeah, I'd expect probably and have one of those days be a consistent day in the office, so you could publish the hours.
Right. And have one of those in a day where we have office hours, Joanna's there, they can interact. Yeah. All right. I will take that and give that to Chris. I'll talk to Chris, or whatever, email with Chris on that, what the board's pleasures are.
The only thing we asked, I think one thing that we asked about was like, so line 106 indicates it's offsetting revenue, but so so we're wondering why advertising's not, because maybe it's because it's not always.
I checked out on that. So she said that, the reason is because it's not a consistent, offsetting. So, that's why it's not noted that way.
For example, if we have to send out warrant article, if we're posting for that, or if we're posting for an RFP, that's not offsetting, so,
Correct.
right,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not consistent, yeah.
So those are just, that line 106 is just notices? Get sent out.
Yes.
No, line 106?
Yeah.
I don't know what line 106 is. Line 100 is the one I was, talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that, no, I was talking
Advertising?
about both, I'm sorry, but line 100 doesn't mention that's offsetting, because that expenditure, some of that comes back. That's why, like, 2017, we expended 2,600, we budgeted 2,000, but at some point, we probably got a good chunk of that back. So it's looking like we're spending it, but we're, it comes back in somewhere else.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so the reason why that is because when I have fees paid for,
Yep.
it doesn't say these fees are for X, Y, Z. It's not broken down in the system, so she can't break it down in here.
So where do those go? Where do fees that come back in go?
That's a good question. I never thought of asking it that way.
Yeah, so that's not an expenditure, it's a reimbursed.
I think the fees that come back go into the general fund. I don't think they're credited to this
They
department.
should go credited to this.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the way they bookkeep it here.
Yeah,
I think,
I bet you're right, but
I think we've been through this before.
Okay.
But it's a good question to ask again, Joanne.
Yeah, we have new personnel, well, new-ish. Yeah.
Are we just going down the list, or can I just throw out a couple random ones? All right, line 102, I think there was some discussion a month or two ago about getting an inclinometer or something along those lines.
Clinometer, yeah,
Oh,
that would be great.
Yeah,
So, yeah, let's, I don't know why there's a $10,
keep it open.
It's a placeholder.
no.
Yeah,
It doesn't-
$10
It doesn't delete zeros before.
So do you remember how much that, what was that, 200 bucks?
200,
Let's put in 200 bucks.
super.
Does the board want rulers as well for each board member, engineering rulers? That's $6 per board member.
I'm all set.
if we have a planner, part-time, we're good.
Good, okay.
fill in the above first.
I think once we do get that clinometer, a good thing for us to do as a board, you know, would be to kind of just look at different areas of town, maybe the
Field
town-
trip.
That are like, okay, this is what 5% slope looks like, this is what 10, 15,
Steep
25,
slope,
30,
10%.
things like that, so we kind of get a better perspective when we talk about it, you know, okay, now I understand it more, or I see it, and,
Yeah,
because I think sometimes it's lost.
Is that something we could potentially add to our GIS map set, potentially? Do we have the data that would allow for showing where those areas are on a town map? If we were to have a steep slopes ordinance, it might behoove us to show
Do we?
the residents
I
what.
don't think we have that overlay
No?
now. Some of those overlays, a lot of them come from like Granite View, which is UNH and I don't know what other organizations put it all together, compile all that data, but they take all those layers. Like, so the town tax maps are now, they're digitized, so that's part of it, so you can
Yeah.
click on that layer and see.
Are you thinking about like us recording, going out and doing a
I'm
field
thinking of-
measurement and then putting it on a GIS layer?
I don't know if we're gonna, I don't think we can hit every spot in town. I'm wondering if there's other data sources, or satellite data that would provide some of that for us.
Oh, yeah, there is, I mean, there is, I mean,
Yeah.
we know what areas by, like soils, the USGS and everything else that show, you know, categorize the soils between 3 to 5, 5 to 8. I can't remember what it goes from, but then, you know, 25 and greater, things like that. So we can identify it, but I was just saying, like, so we can kind of get I think it's the board did just a workshop,
A visual,
Sure.
hopefully all
Practical.
within a close area, you know, that makes sense, so we can reference it, you know, like, the hill going down to the parking lot here is, you know,
10%.
10%.
I measured it.
Oh, there you go.
I have a smart level inclinometer, so. I might own it, you know, borrow it.
you said that last year.
And you never asked.
And we were in the field like
Where's Dirk's thing?
This past Saturday, working on trails, and, oh, wish we had that clinometer, you know? It's okay.
And the other, budgeting for what I would expect to be a continuation of master plan updates, into 2019.
What, line 104?
104, yep.
So those are mapping. So that's master plan, town map. I think that was what we had.
Oh, I thought that was just,
mapping
oh, okay.
to like print off the maps, I think. That's what,
So it's not just a general master plan.
I don't think so, no.
No, Matt, that would be under planner.
Then we need more money in the planner line.
Right, so, right, no, well, we do need a place for, you know, what, the proposal that we're gonna send out. We need a place for that budget. Be under planner.
Yeah, I think that's
I
what
think we
we're,
just added into the planner, so we may actually be bumping that up.
Well, yeah, but that's awfully scary. You know,
I-
you see,
I'd rather it be a separate line item so we can specifically say we want to spend money
for this project.
master
Right, it's
plan
different
update.
types of planner.
Well, maybe we can just change 104 to master plan,
Yeah,
maybe we just put it in that one, maybe.
we'll have to find out. That, I'm trying to remember from the budget is.
Can we just cross out town
Like the
map?
reasons why leaving a $10 placeholder, there's something to do with adding lines and
Sure.
I feel like that was a discussion before at some level.
yeah. I don't like
Somewhere.
the idea of not spending any of the PB planner budget this year and
put
then
it on
asking for
miscellaneous.
$25,000 or whatever.
Put it on the miscellaneous and add narrative.
I'm sorry? Ed, what?
I just put it on line 107, the miscellaneous, and just add narrative.
Nottingham's omnibus budget.
Well, it's under legal services also says plan/legal.
So planning services, legal services. That might be the spot
For this year, yeah.
for the master
The
planning.
master plan.
And the master plan and the RFP.
Yeah.
But how about review of things that we pass on to legal that cost money?
We'll add,
Where would that
keep the
go?
500. We haven't spent any of it, even though we have gotten some legal
All right,
opinions.
so you just lost me. Where are we putting master plan?
I think we can
We
put
drop it
master
out.
plan services and legal services under 105.
105, okay.
Yeah, the RFP, or keep that separate under the planner.
The RFP services, you mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, that-
Whatever, like the RFP, when we send that out, we get it back.
You mean hiring that firm? I think that's what we're talking about, putting
Put
that.
that too, yeah,
Put that under the,
under 104. So Joe's talking about the actual master plan from the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever costs associated with that and the RFP.
Yeah, because we're
legal.
gonna be spending money twice on planning services, master plan,
master plan.
and the zoning.
Or three things. The planner doing the RFP and the master plan itself. Three different big projects. So where should they go?
Yeah, so the planner is line 94, if you're talking about the part-time planner.
Hiring a person, a
I think
body.
that would be 94 itself.
Okay,
But that's the person that's gonna give us advice on a meeting by meeting basis.
Yes.
Every
Yeah.
meeting.
So under which line?
That's 904, I mean, 94.
94.
94. Okay, good, yeah.
So that's a person the town would hire.
Mm-hmm.
It's part-time employee.
That's
Yeah,
what I
okay,
got.
what that is going on, do we actually need a new line, because it'd be a salary, if it's an employee versus, like 93 is salary. So if they become an employee, yeah.
I mean, that was the number that Paul had, was under that line.
Okay,
So he was an employee,
Yeah, I think that
but
could
he
have
showed up on
fallen,
another budget too.
could have fallen under, you know, Paul's cost at the time, or
Mhm.
if we went to Stratford Regional, for instance, so.
All right, well, let's just go right from the top, because I'm a little confused.
Sounds good.
So 93, planning board salary secretary,
I think that's outside of us.
that's gonna be the proposed budget will be Joanna. 94, the planning board planner.
But is that first one staying the same as is what we
Yeah, she
had.
hasn't spent the last 2 months, or earned the last 2 months, I
So,
would say.
yes, that's staying
So
the
which
same,
number
but
are we
it's
using?
into the,
Well, and since that's a,
14 or the?
it's a staff issue.
as I say, I think since it's an employee, this guy, I don't know that we can talk about it in public session.
Right.
But I think some of that comes from the board of selectmen and town administrator anyway.
Okay,
So 94, the planner, that's the employee. We're gonna, I'll talk with Chris on the appropriate, part-time hours and potential costs that would go into that. Postage, we had 1,000, we spent 200.
all departments draw from that. It goes into a pool. Because when we get things, when we have notices to send out from the Conservation Commission, it just goes to the office here, and they put postage on it.
So it all comes out,
So this is $1,000 budget is for kind of everybody to draw off of.
Well, no, everybody contributes to postage.
But we're contributing 1,000.
And they've said that they have spent 198 of our money, but I
Right.
think that's just dividing everything by 3 or something.
All right. So,
They might need that $1,000.
I mean, if you look at 2017, we budgeted 800 and we spent 18. Well, however that works out.
yeah,
Again, that's a weird thing. I think for the most part, that's an offsetting, most of the time it's offsetting unless we have to notice something that we're doing as a board versus applications.
we'll just,
I think that's
We'll
a
keep that the
business
same.
office thing.
we'll keep it the same.
Okay.
1,000?
yeah.
96 printing. Right now, it's just a placeholder, so I'm just gonna placeholder it again.
Okay.
Dues conferences, so,
We talked about upping that, I think.
okay, to
last
what?
meeting. Was it 750?
750,
I think that's what we
Back up
said
to what it
last.
was.
okay. Publications, it's been up and down, we'll just leave it at 100. Is that okay?
Okay.
Joanna,
Do you
any?
know- Yeah, what were the cost of these books?
$650 each, and I ordered a couple extra for the other, for the
Master plan.
master plan, and I don't have that note with me.
Okay.
Want to do 150?
Sounds reasonable. If there was a couple of other books that you had mentioned that would be helpful to the master plan, I'll have to look back in my emails.
Okay, we'll put in 150.
Okay.
Registry of Deeds. So we had 500, spent 246, 400, we spent 54. What do we pay the Registry of Deeds for? To register some of the documents, right? I mean,
Yeah.
mostly the applicants are paying for that, right?
Yes, they pay for the L-chip. There's a portion that the town gets billed for, and I don't remember what.
So is that just
So let's-
offsetting?
Let's go down to,
So I thought it would be almost all
let's
offset.
go down to, say, 300,
Okay.
and just chime in if you have any issues. Advertising, I'm confused about that one, so we'll just leave it
Leave
the
it at two.
same, 2,000. Office supplies, how you guys, you're okay with what you have, Joanna?
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at 300. Mileage. It's like we're probably,
27%.
This year's been quiet until just before the end of last week. So I anticipate the beginning to the middle of next year, if you guys end up passing these next 4 applications, that I'll be making some trips. This year, I haven't been making that many.
Are you going to encumber 18 budget to pay for what you do in 2019?
I don't know how that works.
I think you
submit
just
my
tell them at
miles.
the office, you want to encumber so much money from this line because you anticipate needing to spend it in January, February. Because they
Okay.
don't like you to spend money from January 1st until after town meeting. But if you encumber funds because you anticipate using it, they'll let you do that.
All right.
Would a part-time planner be submitting for mileage reimbursement?
yeah.
so we might need to,
Why don't we just leave it at the 250?
All right.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into this, what we're gonna decide, so, master plan town map.
I don't know what that means.
do we have visibility into, how long has that line item been there and what was in that in years prior to 2017? That's what I'd like to know. Like in 20.
We do, but we don't right now. I think we've had them for the years past, I just don't have them.
Let's go to the town reports in the library,
Okay.
they're back to like 18, no, I'm just kidding. But that is one way,
It's a
but.
$10
it's probably
I'm just
a year
interested
old.
to know if historically, if that was used for the previous master plan updates. For consistency's sake, it might be worth finding out.
I think that was in planner, in the planner line,
Yeah, when we paid Jack Meddy, it came out of, I believe, the
came out of the
planner.
planner line,
Okay,
94.
all right.
I will say that there's been a lot of people asking for an updated town map. We don't have one with all our new roads and everything. So I don't know necessarily if it's a 2019 thing to do, but FYI, that is something that's been requested a lot.
It would be perfect to go hand in hand with the updated master plan chapters that they tackle.
The last one we had is 09.
So what do you think that would cost if we had
That's 10 years
Stratford
old.
Regional?
I can find out what it was before, and yeah, I don't know. Inflation.
That'd be perfect.
I'm sorry?
I think that'd be good.
Okay.
It's really not hard, I mean, they, for the most part, I think they just choose the overlays and they get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
data
spend
that's
some
out there,
time, yeah.
and they're just grabbing it, and
So do we wanna increase this amount?
do we need this?
We have no idea what it's gonna cost.
Yeah, if we had an idea.
Alright, so we're gonna punt on this one until Joanna, yep, alright.
Okay.
Then it's the planning legal services. So we still need to find a place for where the master plan update services come out of. And then our RFP services come out of.
Do you wanna put them both on 107? Master plan and RFP?
We're saying, do we wanna add it to 105, I think, or push it into 107?
Yeah, it either needs to be, I think we'd rather identify it as not miscellaneous. I don't think we should identify it as miscellaneous.
Right. So
I think we need to clearly identify that this is for the master plan update.
Well, could we do
Services.
Can we do 108, 109, and then planning board department total, 110?
I don't know if we're allowed to add item,
That's what,
add
yeah,
line
I
items.
was wondering too.
that was one of the questions we had was, I don't know what the process is of adding or amending these items, these lines.
Seems like the common sense solution, but
Well, we could submit it and see what they do with it.
If Tony was here, Tony's done the budgets and stuff, so I know he would probably have the answer to that, but he's unfortunately not here.
Well, it would have to be,
We can make that note, how about we come up with a dollar figure and have that question.
Why don't we just put, budget in for the master plan town map line? If we wanna have a separate, because what, the discussion we just had is that the town map is the map is gonna actually be reflective of what we do with the master plan.
well, it's part of the update.
Right. So why don't we put a real budget on that line, 104, instead of trying to make a new lineup?
I'd rather keep 104, put it master plan and scratch town map off of it.
But
if we can.
there's an RSA that directs the planning board for providing the community with a town map,
Okay,
not to make,
so don't
Trouble.
scratch town map.
Can we just put in a comment in the narrative? We would like to spend
Yes.
this much money on the planner.
Put it in the budget somewhere.
Yep, help us out.
For the master plan, yeah, got it.
So.
and the other one
what-
too?
What amount do we wanna have for the master plan updates?
So, based on what Sue found, we're thinking around.
Yeah, Joanna.
10,
Or Joanna, 10,000.
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
But now, do we have something for miscellaneous? Because maybe we could fill it, for the time being, put it under miscellaneous, and unless we have something specific for that. And put in the narrative,
I actually,
this is what
Or
we'd
they'll
like to
just have them,
outline.
they'll just have them fit it in,
yeah, I think that one of the
add some more lines for us.
departments might have done that last year with something. Miscellaneous was used, but there was commentary around it. I don't remember what it was, and this could,
And the narrative, I think, goes to the budget committee, but I don't think it shows when the budget's presented to the town,
right.
so.
Guess the only risk of that is it might end up on a line we don't want it on. It might get moved to wherever.
Right. So I kind of feel like, going back to what Dirk had said, if we identify the area, what items we want and how much we want on them, I think we can put a note to the budget committee and saying, we can put these here, or can we add a line, or if we change the, you know, one of these lines to read more clearly.
Yeah.
Because we're not in the finalization stage of this yet.
So then, okay, so master planning is 10,000.
10,000?
And now we've got to deal with the budgeting of the zoning ordinance. So the RFP. And what did we,
I'm looking at workforce housing, but that was a section of the zoning ordinance. And then, that was embedded in the zoning ordinance. And then 2 years later, 6,000 was spent for planning services and planner. That was spent on a budget of, proposed budget of 15.
so why don't we put $10,000?
Okay. We don't have to spend it. Now, are you asking for 2 additional lines?
I'm just gonna say that these are the things we want, and put them in whatever lines you want.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
So
long as
that's
it's
our,
there.
that's our budget,
Now, what do we have down for town map? Oh, Joanna's gonna
10
check on
bucks.
that.
And then Joanna will put that in there. Planning legal services, we'll just leave that at 500. The reimbursable, what's this, zeroed. Miscellaneous is placeholder, so 10 bucks. That sound out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Planning Association, Regional Planning Association, so, yeah, the $2,500 I think is the membership fee, but we have not become a member.
No, it's pay as you go.
Although, yeah, so, why didn't we spend any of it?
There was a question at the last meeting. Joanna, did you find out if we'd received the invoice for
The maps.
the aquifer map?
We
Where
did,
it went?
and it was accidentally put in the wrong department,
Excellent.
so that's been cleared up.
Would that, do we know if that would fall under 161?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
But I don't have a new spreadsheet.
That's fine.
How much was it?
I actually didn't write down how much it was.
I was thinking that would give us an idea.
Was it
of
Wasn't
what time-
extraordinary.
Was
then,
it
so-
2,500?
Right? So an extraordinary, another department paid for it?
So is the feeling to continue with the 2,500?
Yes.
I think that's been there, yeah, because then it was also to use them as a pay-as-you-go.
Okay, I think we've got it. I'll,
Clear as mud.
yeah. So, do we have this, do I have this spreadsheet? Can you send it to
I don't
me?
know if I sent it to the board or not, but I have it to put the information in if you want me to do it. I can send it to you so that you can do it. Let's do that.
Send it to me, I'll put in what we just talked about
Okay.
with the holes or question marks.
I'll try to do that before I leave tonight.
Do you want to vote? And if so, do you want to know how much the total is?
I don't think
We won't know.
I don't,
we're not there yet, right?
Yeah,
We're not at the,
We're
we
missing
still have
a
time to
couple
get
of
this in,
This
right?
is due.
I have that, hang on. Yeah.
Sometime in November, I thought, but.
Yeah,
It's due
because we-
November 5th, our fun day.
So we actually don't meet.
We don't meet.
We don't meet again.
But why do we need to vote on it?
I don't know.
We do, it's not our decision anyway, all we're doing is making recommendations. Right?
Well, I think the only reason we vote on it is to show that we collectively have looked at this and not that a secretary or a
Chairman.
vice chair decided to submit it on their own.
A motion that we symbolically approve the budget as proposed. Just kidding. I don't know what.
That was good.
I mean, we could add it up, but we don't know some of the numbers.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're missing one, two.
How about this? I still have to talk to Chris about some of these, so I'll ask him what he wants back from us. And then if we need to do a, email vote, we'll just do that prior to the November 5th. Does that work for everyone?
Are we allowed to do that?
No.
Oh,
Not as a,
why not?
as a vote.
I don't know, I think you have to be together.
Charlene had a comment on that, on
No
another
business,
topic.
no business can be conducted over by email.
We have a conference call?
I don't know if those are legal, because we had a conference call in to our master plan meeting. We already had a quorum, so that was all right.
Just add them up and then we'll take a vote on
How about
approximate.
this? Where are we at for now, for numbers?
She's adding.
$57,690.
So, how about if I
And
may-
that is not, that is, that's $10 for the town map. And Joanna was gonna check on that.
So if I made a motion, for example, that authorized, or the chair to finalize the budget, formalize the budget in an amount not to exceed $60,000, would that be sufficient, or no, because we don't know what that planner secretary line is gonna be?
It was the town map that she was gonna check on.
No, I know, but I can't imagine that's gonna be,
That's not-
about $3,000 range.
Do you have a number for the planner?
But I'm talking about the planner line, if we talk, you know.
Oh, yes.
We didn't determine a salary on that.
We had 15,000 for the
15,
part-time planner to help us, on the job, and then 10K and 10K both for master plan update, 10K and RFP for the
So I
comprehensive
think that leaves us
review.
quite a bit of wiggle room.
Yeah.
So that's 57,690. So I think your motion is good, not to
So-
exceed 60,000.
I make a motion,
We already have one on the floor.
oh, your joke
Is
is
that a
motion.
formal motion?
I think that was.
You wanna rescind it?
a
I
light-
didn't know what the
I think it
formal
was-
process would be.
It was a vote light, L-I-T-E.
Yes. I can.
Can you,
I can
Rescind that.
rescind my motion, formally rescind my motion of the informal symbolic motion.
Joanne, I apologize.
I don't have to put all that in.
No, you don't.
don't put any of that in there.
I haven't had dinner yet, I'm getting
And
hungry.
I will make a motion that we authorize the chair of the Dirk to formalize our planning board budget in an amount to not exceed $60,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion, Buzz? Those in favor indicate aye. Those opposed,
Aye.
it's unanimous.
What was that, who seconded it?
Gary,
Gary did. Next?
are we getting punchy enough to get out of here?
No,
What?
we have, a wetland protection ordinance to look over.
No, we don't. It's not on the agenda.
It's under other.
All right. So I'm gonna go around the room and ask if there's any other, members that have anything.
No.
I do not.
I do not. Joe?
No.
Gary?
Just, I'll leave this info, it's on the MPO from Stratford Regional about regional projects that were awarded through the TAP, I believe it is, this one is. Anyway, I'll just leave this copy, anybody who wants to take a look.
Great.
It's for Rochester, Farmington, and Somersworth projects.
Thanks. Sue?
I do, if I may be so bold. The Conservation Commission, under the direction of the Planning Board, has been working recently on a Nottingham Stream Protection Ordinance. And you should have a copy of these in your binder. And I sent out yesterday an electronic copy to you all as well. And the purpose of this protection ordinance is that we have setbacks for buildings and other structures to streams and wetlands, but this is only for streams. But those setbacks do not protect the streams and rivers from other impacts, such as fertilizers and manures, and, pesticides or whatever. So we went and looked to see what area communities have done for buffers that offer protection to streams and rivers, and we checked into Deerfield, Barrington, Lee, Fremont, and a couple of other communities. We also received from Stratford Regional Planning, and if you would just show that to Joe, and then pass this down, what size buffers communities have done to protect their streams, first through fourth order streams. So in our final draft, the rationale, the purpose of putting this together for our waters is to ensure protection of groundwater and drinking water supplies. Water is all connected. It's not separate from the water that you drink. Prevent flooding, sedimentation, and pollution from impervious surfaces and other sources. Protect aquatic and terrestrial wildlife habitat. Preserve aesthetic values. Prevent unnecessary expenses to the town in case there's a negative impact. And encourage uses that can be appropriately located near the town's surface water resources. The state defines streams as first, second, third, and fourth. All fourth order streams, such as the North River, the Elliott River, and a couple of other smaller rivers like the Pawtucket River, are protected by state RSA. The buffer is a reference to the number here somewhere. RSA 483. However, only local protection can offer buffers to first, second, and third order streams. And a first is the smallest stream, has no tributaries. The second order stream is made by the confluence of two first order. Third order streams by the confluence of two second order streams, like the Bean River is a third order stream. And then a fourth order stream, two-third converge, whatever that word was that I meant to say. And the administration is going to be the Nottingham Planning Board and possibly the zoning board if there's a hardship involved, and there's some grace in there. Non-permitted uses on page 2. Talking about no roads, driveways, or parking areas, no permanent or temporary dwellings. I think that's covered in our setbacks anyway. Wastewater, excavation or filling, so you can't change the topography. The cutting or removing of vegetation is modeled after RSA 483B:9, which says you can only remove 50% of the vegetation at any one time. And we put a 10-year period on that, because theoretically you could go in and remove 50%, and then the next year remove another 50%. And this 10-year would give the area time to revegetate and grow. No fertilizers except control release. Pesticides, herbicides, hazardous materials, manures, and no disposal of lawn debris, and no animal housing. Permitted uses, and we got some of these from talking with people in town. recreational trails and trail bridges, wells and well lines, fence grazing, dry hydrants, removal of state, identified invasive plant species, removal of hazardous trees, and planting of new vegetation with native species. And there are a couple of regulations, one dealing with docks and floats. We wanted to make this as gentle as possible and have the community embrace this initiative as a way to protect our water.
So what are the protections? So you talking just buffers?
It's a buffer. So you leave the natural vegetation within 50 feet of a first order stream, and within 75 feet, leave that vegetative buffer that you can remove 50% of over a 10-year period. And you can't, you should not do any activity that's going to impact that body of water negatively.
So, but it's all buffer-based, right? I mean,
Yes, yes,
it's restrictive buffers,
yes. Well, protective buffers.
protective, okay.
Protective is better. And communities around us have them. In fact, some of them are more ambitious than others. For a first-order stream, many of them are at 100 feet.
Yes, yeah.
In a,
So give us an example of what do we have in our town that's a second and third order stream? Or maybe third order stream, I guess.
well, the Bean River is a third-order stream.
Okay, we have one of those or something? Or is it-
We have a map that Stratford Regional Planning provided for us. We have very few first-order streams in town, and most of them are like in the woods and really aren't going to impact many people.
There's a map of surface water
Yeah, I was
resources
just
somewhere.
Yeah, but
getting
we have
idea.
them, we have one in the
What's the
back.
difference between a first-order stream and a second-order?
First is a little trickly thing
Okay,
that maybe
so the
might-
bigger the number, the bigger the stream.
Yes, but they're not additive. So two
They're
singles, kinda, not by 10. Two first make a second. 2 seconds make a third. And then 2/3 make a fourth. But you could have a third flowing into a fourth, Bean River flowing into the Elliott, which drains the northern end of Pawtuckaway. Elliott is a fourth order. So the bean comes into the Elliott, it stays the bean, but now it becomes protected under the state. So the bigger bodies of water are fourth. The North River is a third order until it gets down to Jabig. There's no buffers provided for the North River.
Do some of those other towns, so the two areas that I noticed that would be, I'd want clarification or concern would be no roads, and in the exemptions, it mentions structures, which I suppose could encompass roads, but if the town needed to take on a new road and it abutted or crossed over one of these protected areas, what does that look like? And how is that language in some of those other
Well,
towns?
if the town owns the right-of-way and owns the road, then this would not apply to that. They would have to go through their own permitting process to do that, because they'd be crossing a wetlands. This is for private property.
So this is for subdivision.
Yes, it's for
Right.
zoning ordinance. Yeah,
So,
and site plan review as well.
so I know we had a focus on the streams, and I just sent this to you before the meeting, so I'm sure you're gonna look at it. So when I kind of looked this up, and I found either a New Hampshire DES draft or OSI, I'm not certain whose it was. And it was like 20 pages, but it gave information on it. And, you know, they were going from between, I think it was 150 and 250 foot buffers. But they, instead of having it be a stream protection ordinance, they had it as a riparian zone. So that's probably the one.
That's the document.
Riparian buffers. So I know we have wetlands defined in our ordinance, you know, poorly drained, very poorly drained. Is there a reason why we're kind of not including
Yes.
them in this? Like, so ponds
Yes,
and
there's a
vernal
reason.
pools and all that?
if there's too much before the voters to look at and accept and manage, if it's like this,
Yeah, obviously that's untenable for
vote
us.
no.
Right.
It's too long. It's too, I'm not spending my time with that.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the year 2000, there were pages and pages of warrant articles that were put before the voters, that, for a variety of reasons, and they all got voted down. It was too much for the voters, too much homework.
Okay.
Vote no. So we wanted to just focus on the streams, because we have nothing. And we wanted to make it palatable and understanding, and we wanted the public to be comfortable with it. Another time, we can address wetlands, I think.
Do you feel that the 50 and 75-foot buffers are appropriate if all these other towns are up at 100?
We started at 100, and we said, oh my God, that's a, this room is from here to here is 40 feet.
Yeah.
So 50 feet is another 10 feet, and that's for a first order stream only. Second, third, and fourth would get 75 feet. More than adequate. And I remember a study that I read years ago that said that even a 20-foot buffer makes a difference.
And in some of those, you're gonna start butting up against, I'm guessing, on the higher order streams, probably into, base flood elevation zones.
Oh, yes, yeah. High
A
water
lot
mark.
of these small towns only have 25s, according to this,
That's for the first order.
and the second, and the third.
But the majority are up there. If you take an average,
Yeah,
we, under
but
none.
they're towns like Durham and Exeter,
Oh, they're very,
Portsmouth and Somersworth.
very aggressive.
So,
This is all for the Lamprey River water, I'm sorry, Great Bay watershed.
under number 5 for non-permitted uses, just that first line, you have to strike a couple words because it's repetitive. So there shall be no cutting, and then at the end says, except where,
Where are
shall
you?
be permitted, non-permitted uses, number 5.
Oh, not permitted.
There shall be no cutting.
Except where permitted under the provisions of this section shall be prohibited. And here are the
They-
provisions, you can cut,
But it starts at the beginning saying there shall be no cutting, removing.
except where permitted.
Right, but then at the end, shall be prohibited. I'm saying it's repetitive, so it's like it seems like,
Okay, we can review the grammatical
yeah,
things after.
I was just trying
Well, I
to,
thought, we're looking, I have sat on this for a couple of years. I'm sorry to have been slow on picking up the reins. But at this point, would like to send it to legal and have them take a look and then see where we go from there.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And are you, is this thinking about getting in for November?
Yes, yes. The last day to submit for the warrant is February 4th. So we would have 2 public hearing dates, we meaning the planning board, because it's under the charge of the planning board. Were we gonna do anything else for the warrant?
We are, we're gonna do zoning as well,
Okay,
but, yeah.
like this stuff from Dale and the other things, overlay
So
districts.
I'm not worried about the February 4th, friend, but I have right here, the last day to post and publish notice for first hearing on proposed adoption or amendment is January 12th.
No, this is to get it to the office, to put into the warrant.
Okay,
Yeah, that was from Dawn.
all right,
Last day to give it to me, she said.
okay.
Yeah, so we have other ones that are gonna go in as well.
Okay.
Should we combine them all together, or should we?
Yeah, we could.
For the submission to legal?
Yeah.
And will that give council time to turn around and look at them all?
and I'd be fine with sending one ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if
because
that's ready to go.
I don't know
It's
where
ready
we're
to
at.
go. It's ready to
The
go.
only other thing I would ask though is do we need to add any definitions that you feel from this? I mean, everything's defined, like basically the basal area thing, it's defined in the section, so I think that makes sense. So I don't know necessarily that would have any definitions to add, but that, we don't need to send to legal, we can just figure that out after, before the warrant. And, the only other thing is the exemptions, would it be the date that the town votes on it, or like most zoning becomes effective the date we vote as a board to move it forward to the town?
Say that last part again?
So usually, like for zoning, if we, I think it's zoning, if we vote on something, a zoning change as a board, it technically becomes enforceable from that date unless the town votes it down.
That's correct.
So do we leave that March 12th date because that's the town ballot day or town meeting? I think it's fine, I'm just, this is a procedural question.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we're not voting on it right now, right?
No.
We're just saying,
Having legal look at it.
yeah.
Yep, so I'm fine.
Well, do you want a vote that says, let's submit it to, town council? And that just says that it's acceptable to the planning board, to do so.
Yeah, if somebody wants to make a motion to do that, we can do it.
I move that we send the Nottingham Stream Protection Ordinance Draft, number 5, to town council for, review and, editing.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Who got that?
And also the, master plan update, we had another, meeting, last week, was it, Joe? And
Yes.
we, I had another set of assignments. We are rewriting the whole introduction, and then seeing what we need to update. And then each person has 1 or 2 chapters, most of us have 2 chapters, to review the, action plan items and see what they think, is enforceable, has already been done, is it a priority, or can we do it long-term? And then add to it. So that's where we are now.
Yep.
And our next meeting is November,
12th, 13th, something like
yeah,
that. I still have to write up the minutes. I haven't done that yet.
November
on the
3rd.
13th, yeah. That's already, we've already got an agenda out for that.
Is that back-to-back meetings?
Did last time too.
In those minutes, so you're writing about the subcommittee votes on, when they go to, you give them to Joanna?
Yes.
Yeah.
I took minutes the first meeting,
Yep.
and we have we rotate the chair and the secretary at each meeting. I'm done, thank you.
Yep, any other points? Joanna? Any?
So a busy first meeting in November.
Yep.
We have a wireless tower site plan review. Paul Kane is supposed to be presenting again.
Yep.
Then a design review and a subdivision.
Wow.
Sounds like an exciting night.
So based on that, at the training I went, or the law lecture I went to on Saturday, one of the things that I'd like the board to consider is, especially when it's a full night like that night, accepting an application, or deciding on accepting or not accepting an application as complete, and then potentially setting a date to hear the public hearing, or continuing it to such a date, and that's within your rights to do.
Yeah.
In the future, I will be sending out public hearing notices as stating that the board will hear whether the application is complete or not, and then decide to either hear the public hearing or continue the case for a public hearing to be determined at such a date. That way, all public that does come know that the case may or may not be heard fully, and they may or may not be able to speak to it. So that's something that was advised to do, and I had not been doing it that way.
Yeah, Kingston does that. Kingston, every single case.
Would there be a way for us to figure out in advance to put them in order of the ones that I don't know what the criteria would be, but we could make decisions on accepting and then tabling the conversation for another meeting and have those be the front-loaded topics? Or would we not know until we get into them, whether or not we continue discussion?
We may not know.
Yeah.
And, you know, agenda setting's a little bit dicey.
Yeah.
You know, you try and give the preferences of the continued cases going first, prior to the cases.
Based on that comment, I wanted to know, I don't remember if I spoke to you about it or not, Sue, I think it was you. The SBA Tower site plan review came in before the request from King to continue his case. So his being continued, should he go first, or should the wireless communication tower go first because it was on the docket before his continuation request?
Yeah, the continued case should go first, in my opinion,
Right.
unless anyone else has any objection to that.
I'm fine with that.
I agree.
I agree, I think that's,
Okay. And I know that it's not necessarily on our docket for this year, but I do have, a zoning ordinance, recommendation document for, solar, to put that into our zoning ordinance. I don't think anything on
Like a solar
No, we
farm,
Is that-
like a solar farm.
Yeah, so a farm or anything really, I mean, it's, right now, it's, they just submit a building permit application and, an electric, permit, applications, that's it. So, if we had something big come in, we wouldn't have anything to go for it. We can look at that at some point if you want, I can make a couple copies, scan it, send it to you guys that way, however you wanna do it, or wait until March and then we can talk about it.
Do we not have anything in our permitted or non-permitted uses in some of the districts that would
Well,
protect
it
us?
depends on, if it was something big, like if it was a commercial venture, then we'd probably have jurisdiction under site plan, I would think. And then
What defines big?
Hmm?
What's the definition of big?
I'm saying commercial, so if it's a commercial project versus residential. If it's residential, it's gonna fall under setbacks for structures. That's not to say that someone that has residential can't have a huge solar array, but.
no, you can't. Public Utilities Commission will only allow you to build a unit for your own use, and you can't really overproduce. You can build over what you're gonna use, but that's in anticipation that you will expand into the barn or a greenhouse or whatever.
Okay.
But and if you wanna build a big, solar farm, then you have to be a business, you have to be an LLC.
Mhm.
So the state is really pretty tight on what you can build as a private person.
Doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it.
Sure.
But I think right now, I think we would have jurisdiction under site plan.
Let's put that into 2019.
That's what I anticipated the response to be. It was
Sounds good.
really interesting, really interesting.
Okay, I entertain a motion to
I move we adjourn.
adjourn.
I'll second.
Second, multiple seconds, so voting is aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.